Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about The Social Network, which just celebrated its 10-year anniversary. Fun fact, Natalie Portman gave the writer Aaron Sorkin some inside details about Harvard, considering that she went there during the same time that Mark Zuckerberg was there, and in turn there's a little shout out to her in the movie. The movie came out in 2010 and stars Jesse Eisenberg, Andrew Garfield, and Justin Timberlake, and was directed by David Fincher. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. The Social Network tells the story of Mark Zuckerberg, who's one of the founders of this small company you may have heard of called Facebook. The film talks about in 2003 how Facebook came to be, starting off as this small social networking platform for just Harvard students to eventually growing to this massive social networking platform that is known worldwide. 6 years after the launch of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg becomes the youngest billionaire. But with all that success comes personal and legal problems. Mark finds himself embroiled in 2 lawsuits at the same time. One with his former best friend Eduardo Saverin, and the other with fellow Harvard students Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss and Divya Narendra. The movie itself is based off of a book called The Accidental Billionaires. The cast of this movie is just fantastic. Jesse Eisenberg has been in movies like Zombieland, Batman vs. Superman, and Now You See Me. Andrew Garfield you might have seen in Hacksaw Ridge, The Amazing Spider-Man, and The Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus. Justin Timberlake, he's in Trolls, Friends with Benefits, and not to mention, he's a multi-platinum, multi-Grammy winning artist, and he was in a group that you may have heard of by the name of NSYNC. Rashad Jones, who you may recognize from Parks and Recreation, Black AF, and Klaus. Rooney Mara from Lion, Kubo and the Two Strings, and Carol. Armie Hammer from Call Me By Your Name, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., and On the Basis of Sex. Max Minghella, who was in Horns and Handmaid's Tale. The film's tagline on the poster is that you don't get to 500 million friends without making a few enemies, and this movie really proves that. It really makes you think, is it worth making $1 billion if you risk ruining all of the relationships around you? It's literally the definition of more money, more problems. The film's opening scene is iconic, and I think that Jesse Eisenberg and Rooney Mara do a great job with their banter. The scene starts off fun, but takes a turn, and his words become somewhat insulting. The opening scene immediately pulls you in and sets the tone with how fast-paced this movie is going to be. In this scene as well, Jesse Eisenberg gives some insight on what his portrayal of Mark Zuckerberg is going to be like. Jesse Eisenberg slips into the role with ease and portrays Mark Zuckerberg as being not only a smartass, but also very condescending and narcissistic. He embodies Mark Zuckerberg's mannerisms and shows how smart Zuckerberg is when it comes to coding. The costume designers also really nailed Zuckerberg's look. He has this style that just screams casual, and I don't really give a fuck about what you think about me. I think when you're making a movie about a real person, it adds to like that realism when you can see a good comparison between the actor and the person that they're portraying. Mark Zuckerberg said that he didn't really like the portrayal of him in the film, but who would if they're being painted as the villain? He did say, however, that the clothing in the film was pretty spot on. Andrew Garfield does a phenomenal job portraying Eduardo, switching from friend to foe. Garfield really makes you feel bad for the character and what he's had to endure with basically being kicked out of a company he helped create. By the end of the movie, I felt bad for the character because he not only put in so much work, but he was also friends with Zuckerberg from the very beginning, and he was now being treated like he was just disposable. Also, Andrew Garfield definitely deserved the Oscar for this movie, and I will die on that hill. Justin Timberlake does a great job as well as Sean Parker. He really makes you hate him for how much he put a wedge in between Severin and Zuckerberg. Armie Hammer plays Tyler and Cameron Winklevoss, and he does a great job portraying both of the twins. He steps into this role of accusing Mark Zuckerberg of stealing this idea that they had for creating a website for Harvard students to share their relationship statuses that the twins thought of with their friend Divya Narendra. Hammer really steps into this role and showing the twins as being like super confident, but also showing how that confidence sometimes can come off as being cocky. Rashida Jones portrays this like junior type lawyer who doesn't have a big part, but I feel like this role was really memorable. For most of the movie, she's just sitting there observing, and at the end of the movie, she lets Zuckerberg know that they're going to have to settle. She explains to him in a very respectful way that if they were to go to, court and there's a jury involved, that he's going to lose. And that's the reason why they need to settle, in that he's going to have to pay a little bit more so they can sign an NDA. I think the film composers Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did a phenomenal job when it came to this film score. When I watch this film, I can't help but notice how well the music fits into what's going on in the scene. I feel like with some films, you don't really pay attention to the music in the movie, but with this film, it really stood out to me. I know I'm not the only one who thought that, considering that this film won Best Original Score at the Oscars. I remember watching this film originally when it came out, and I liked Mark Zuckerberg because I thought he was a smartass, but I also just thought that he was being realistic. Now, when I watch this movie, I can tell that he was just being super shady. The film shows how he basically tried to cut his best friend out of a company that they created together. It also shows how he's super smart, but also socially inept. I also think it's awful how he created this website to rate girls as if they were put there for his entertainment. One of my favorite scenes in this movie comes when Eduardo is meeting with the lawyers and they are telling him that his shares are being diluted down to 0.03% and he's not listed as a co-founder anymore and he loses it. He goes to talk to Mark, who is busy coding, and he breaks his computer and is very angry that they set him up to lose all his shares in Facebook. The scene is also flipping back to the current day in their meeting with their lawyers, in which you can see how hurt Eduardo is and the embarrassment in Mark's face, but it's a type of embarrassment in himself for what he did. It switches back to the scene in the Facebook office where Eduardo tells Zuckerberg that he needs to lawyer up because he's coming to sue him. It's a full circle moment that helps you understand what the movie has been leading up to. Once you figure out about Mark being sued, you just garner more interest to figure out why. This movie does a great job of switching between the deposition and the making of Facebook. I think often in movies when we're switching between different time periods, it can get a little confusing. But with this movie, they do it so well so the viewer is able to keep up and understand where they are in time. We meet a wide range of characters, and the actors portraying them really hold their own and bring life to the characters. When you watch this film, you notice that Jesse Eisenberg's version of Mark Zuckerberg is the central character in this movie, but the other actors in the movies really shine in their roles. As I mentioned earlier, this movie is based off of a book, but the events actually happened in real life. I encourage you to take a look at what actually happened and learn a little bit more about the history of Facebook. You can always use your little personal information finder, also known as Google, to do this research on your own so you can learn a little bit more about, the truth behind some of the story. This movie is one of the best movies that came out in 2010. It is so well acted and the story keeps you so interested that time just flies on by. If you have not seen this movie, I highly suggest that you watch this. I highly recommend this movie because it shows how greed can corrupt you. This film also teaches you more about the history of one of the biggest companies in the world right now. Thank you for watching my video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below. If you have not subscribed, please do so you can keep up to date with my videos. But besides that, everyone stay safe, have fun, and goodbye.